guys, and welcome back to another video tutorial here from ReichelProductions, and we're working on Blender 2.76. Now it's been quite a while since we made a video tutorial, and I thought let's just get into something a little more exciting. And so we're going to animate a desk fan. In my part of the world it's summer, so this should be a cool project. So let's get to it. I'm going to put the lights first layer onto the first layer there, and then the camera onto the second layer. Just pressing M and then that, and then the object M and then that. Okay, so what we've got here is the lights, camera, and then action. The objects are going to be all put into these different layers here. So first off, I just want to bring this base, this is going to be the base of the fan, to the ground, which is on this grid here. So to do that, I'm just going to click here so that we can see all the vertices, and we want to just select the bottom ones, and then I'm just going to grab this along the Z axis, and then if I press the space bar and type in snap selection to grid, which I have already used, and I press enter, that will bring it to the base. And then what I'm going to do is just scale this along the Z axis, pressing Z, sorry, and I'm going to put that at 0.2. Just type that into your keypad. Right, the base is nice and square and boring, so let's add some cuts to it so that we can add some curvature. Going into edit mode, do some cuts here, pressing Ctrl R, and then just move the mouse wheel up once and press enter, so that you now have these two cuts here in the middle. And you'll notice that the divisions here are 1/3 each. So if I were to scale this across by 3, it would cover the whole section. That's just something I found. So I'm just going to scale it by just under 3, scale X by 2.8, which I enter onto the keypad, and that has worked. And just make sure it hasn't done any funny things there. And then I'm going to do the same along the horizontal, and move the mouse up, press enter twice just to make sure it's done, and then scale along the Y axis by 2.8. Entering that on the keypad, press enter just to make sure. Okay, so everything is fine. Now if we go into the properties over here, and we're going to add the modifier, which is subdivision surface, so we get some edges there. Okay, but I don't want a square object, so I'm just going to add a few more cuts. Just bring one over here and another one up here somewhere. Okay, I'm going to scale that one in a bit. When you do this, just make sure that the top and bottom are always selected, and as long as you've selected this, it should work. We can scale this up a bit, and then I can just add another one here, and maybe scale this one out a bit. Okay, let's just increase that. That's fine, and let's set that to smooth. We can bring this down actually to about 2. Okay, the next thing I want to do is again go into the side view here, deselect everything, box select, and select all of the top vertices and scale them in. Alright, so we've got some nice curvatures there and some basic shape. I'm just doing this as I go along. Yeah, you see, yeah, that should be fine. Now I'm just going to box select this one again quickly and scale this in a bit, and maybe grab it along the Z axis here. Grab it along the Y axis. Alright, so you've noticed we've also obviously made the base to be in the correct orientation, so that the Z axis is this way and the X axis is that way. Always try and model your objects and place them so that you don't have to rearrange them as I sometimes do, and it's it's all extra work. Just try and work logically. Alright, that's done. Now let's just create the next object, which is the pedestal. Adding a mesh cube. In edit mode, just add a single loop cut along the horizontal and then one along the vertical. Deselect that, go into side view, box select, and delete the faces of those vertices. And then we'll fill these by pressing F. Deselect that and select those and press F. We now have to scale this along the y-axis a little bit. I'm going to then add a bit of subdivision. Let's bring that up to 3 and we'll set that at smooth. I'm going to box select the, deselect everything, box select the bottom here and extrude that out. If I grab this, you get this funny thing happening. So you sometimes have to deselect, then select separately again, and then grab along the z-axis. Okay, so let's compare that with the base. Okay, we have to rotate this around the z-axis by minus 90 degrees. Okay, so that's in line. I'm also going to scale it down a bit, grab it along the z-axis there, and move it along there. Scale it a bit. Okay, so what I want to do is just scale this out here a bit. Box select that along the x-axis, like so. I'm just going to adjust these corners here now. So let's just deselect that. Box select just these edges, these vertices here. Scale these along the x-axis first, and then box select the upper ones like so, and scale those along the x-axis there. That tucks that in, and we'll do the same over here just to get things a little bit better. Scale on x, and then just these outside ones here, tuck those in there. Bringing up the pedestal which we have created, I'm going to work with that only on its own for now. I'm going to deselect this, well, let's just do that and extrude that there, and extrude it one more time. Box select all of it, scale it, tilt that there, yeah, that should be fine. Just compare it in proportion to our base. Yeah, it looks okay. It's not going to topple over, I think. Let's add some control buttons to the pedestal very quickly. So I'm just going to go into the next layer. We'll add a UV sphere, and over here we're going to reduce this to 6. Well, let's make it 8. Yeah. Add a subdivision surface modifier again. Ramp that up and create that into a smooth surface. Delete, deselect everything, box select that much, delete those vertices, scale this along the y-axis. Okay, now let's just go into that there, scale this all the way down, so scale this to 0.1, that should be about right. Just do, see. y-axis, just so it's a little bit bigger, and scale along the x-axis, and then we'll just use the manipulator here to rotate it like so. Yeah. Alright, now we're just going to duplicate this like so, and we're going to shift it over to the right by checking over here the location. At the moment, it's odd, this is at 0. Yes, that's correct, along the x-axis. Okay, so I'm just going to click this a few times till I'm happy. Okay, that's 0.11, and then this one I'm going to duplicate again, and I'm going to go minus 0.11 to the left, obviously. Right, I'm going to rotate this around the z-axis by 5 degrees, minus 5 degrees actually, so that it's inwards, and this one here by 5 degrees. Okay, I think that's more or less okay. I'm just thinking three buttons. Yeah, it should be alright. Less is more. Alright, so now we're going to add the housing for the motor. So let's go to layer 6. I'm going to add a mesh cylinder, but before I do anything to it, check that you've got 32 vertices more or less, and more importantly, make sure that this is set to nothing so that you have open-ended sides. Okay, so we just want to rotate this around the x-axis by 90 degrees, scale it along the y-axis a bit. Let's use the selector, deselect, and then we're just going to box select these vertices here, scale them up a bit just to get our basic shape, and then I'm going to add a vertex loop cut here and scale that up by 1.1. Add another loop cut somewhere there, and maybe there. Let's have a look and see how this compares to the pedestal, where the pedestal is. Okay, we just need to scale this down, scale this to 0.5, and a little more. Right, with the pedestal poking out there, we can just select the faces now and delete them. But before I do that, I'm going to scale this down a bit more, just so that we don't have to delete too many of these faces. Delete those faces there, and now we're going to add subdivision surface modifier, ramp it up to 3. We'll set it to be smooth, and then we'll add some thickness with the solidify modifier. Works great. Just take note, if you put this modifier above, if you stack it above the other one, then your solidify modifier doesn't work the same. Let's just add a little more thickness. Great. I'm just going to set the orientation back to 0 on the axes, X and Z, and we'll just add a mesh plane. Take that around the x-axis so it's facing us. Grab it here more or less. Yeah, let's just get the shift S cursor to selected, and then this selection to cursor. Alright, so now it's in the center there. What I want to do is make a whole lot of cuts here, and I'll just type in here 30, press enter, and then I'm going to do horizontal cuts, and I'm going to type in 50. Okay, so we've got, oops, enter. So we've got this nice grid here. Okay, let me just go to that. Okay, I must move this to this layer. Right, so we go into the face mode, and what we're going to do is just select this end face, the next one after that, between that, and then the other one. Delete, and then box select. Now I'm going to invert this selection and delete it. So now we end up with this piece here which has a grid beginning part, and we're going to use the array modifier to duplicate that, so it creates an even spaced grid. Now the problem is our cursor needs to be our origin, needs to be set to the geometry origin for now anyway, and we'll just scale this down a bit. From the top I want to bring this to this side here, and I want to see that view from the back because that's where the grid is, so I press Ctrl 1, back ortho view, and let's increase this to about 5 or say about 7, doesn't really matter, and we just pop it there. And then I'm going to merge that and apply. Then I'm going to do this again, array modifier, set this to 0, and we want the array modifier to go up, and for some reason it's Y, although this shows the Z axis, it wants to work along the Y axis. Okay, a bit odd, but that's the way it is. Okay. Let's just bring this a bit closer to the edge. Now what I'm going to do is apply that also, merge that and apply. Now we have a mesh grid. The easiest way now to get rid of those parts that we don't need, am I in ortho? Yes, is to just use the circular tool and Control I to invert and delete those faces. And if you are fortunate enough, nothing should be sticking out to have to delete anything. Now that we've done that, I'm just going to add a solidify modifier and just increase the thickness of this grid just to make it look more realistic. And just be careful when you are increasing the thickness, it may start sticking out there. Okay, so just push it back maybe. Increase the thickness some more. Alright, everything's looking fine. I'm just going to add the motor itself so it looks like there's something in there at least. Rotate X 90. Scale that, scale on Y, okay, and then we'll just stick that out there a little bit, and I'm going to now just create a loop cut and bring it out here so that when we subdivide this we have this sort of appearance. Doesn't look too bad. Press S 1.01. Okay, and just maybe set that to smooth. We'll just add another mesh cylinder. Rotate X 90 degrees and scale that along the y-axis. Bring that out there, so that is the shaft now. Now for the fun part, we're going to create the blades for the fan. just going to the next layer, and we will add a mesh circle. Alright, so it's quite basic. Going into the vertex mode, extrude, pressing E and S, and extrude that all the way to about there. And then we're going to do some loop cuts. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 3 is fine. And I'm going to now go to face mode, and I'm going to select box select first. That, and deselect that. Alright, so this is a fan here. I'm going to invert the selection and delete those. I don't need those faces. I have one fan blade. If I go into subdivision surface modifier, I can now get an idea of what's going on. I'm just going to grab this out a bit, just to give it more of a saturation there, as you would with a fan. And then these two sides here, I'm going to merge them using collapse, and that creates that shape. Alright, so we've got one fan blade, and we need either 3, 4, 5, it depends, you know, the fan blades vary. But what basically happens is you take 360 degrees and you divide it by the number of fan blades you have, and it gives you the rotation that you will need to rotate your fan blades around to set them equally, you know, equidistant in that circle. So for example, if you have 3 blades, it would be 360 divided by 3 obviously, and each would be 120 degrees apart from each other. So it's quite simple really. Okay, so what I'll do is just model this finished and then I'll show you. Okay, so I just need to put some curvature on this here, and I just need to tilt this a little bit, so I'm sort of looking at it from this angle. Going into the manipulator here, I can just rotate this a little bit like that, and if I just go and add a bit more subdivision there, then I get that curve, which is not bad. But the problem is we need a little bit more, how can I say, curvature over here, but now we get a kink. So what do we do? Just undo all this, right? The best way is, sorry, go back into that selection there and add connected proportional editing, so that when you rotate this now, you get this nice curvature that follows through the whole blade, and you can decide how much of that you want, so that evens it out better. Okay, so let's go into that, smooth. Okay, now sometimes you might find that if you're looking from the side, it's too exaggerated. And what you can also do is just say scale along Z, and then that will just flatten it out again. That's easier. Alright, and then I'm going to add a modifier, and you guessed it, it's going to be the solidify modifier, which is one of my favorites, as I said. Don't do this too thick, because then it just looks stupid. Alright, probably does look stupid right now. Well, I think it's okay. I'm just giving it a bit more of a exaggerated blade shape. Yeah, that should do. Alright, so now as I was saying, we can rotate them after we've duplicated each one. So let's duplicate one, drag it away, and press escape so you know it has been duplicated. Okay, so we're going to rotate. We're going to have 4 blades, so we're going to rotate them 90 degrees because 4 times 90 is 360. Okay, so we rotate around the Z axis by 90, and then we shift D, duplicate that one, rotate around the Z axis by 90, and then shift D, rotate around the Z axis by 90. I'd like to just add the central part to the blades now, and I'm going to just use a simple circle. I'm going to scale it down and extrude it and scale it in to about there. I'm going to invert the selection, pressing Ctrl I, and then let's just bring it a little bit lower. Extrude it along the Z axis all the way up to about there, and extrude, pressing E and S, and then pull it up a bit. And then I'm going to add another ring, loop ring, scale that out, bring it down, and then deselect that one, and then if we bring this one up, that'll keep that a little bit more defined there at the edge. Let's just go to the subdivision subsurface modifier, and if we go to smooth, let's see, yeah, okay, and then what we need to do is just flatten the bottom here. So box select, just make sure you have this activated, so the vertices are all selected. Press E to flatten that out, and then I'm just going to deselect this here. It just makes it easier. Pressing Shift and Alt again, we can get those all selected, and extrude and scale that in a bit to the center there, and extrude it, grab it down like that. We'll extrude and scale that to 0.05. So you'll see that there is the tiniest of holes there, and that will just help us to be able to select it if we ever need to. Okay, what we need to do is just parent the blades to the center. So I'm going to select all the blades, and then lastly the center, press Ctrl P, and there we go. So if we rotate this around the Z axis, that's all rotating, but if we go to layer 6, is it? Yes. We'll notice that the fan has to be orientated correctly. We'll just rotate around the x-axis 90 degrees, and we're going to put it onto the shaft here. I'm going to select, bring the cursor to selected. Just select the center here because it is parented, and I'm going to say selection to cursor, and we just have to bring this along the y-axis, scale it up a bit, about there. That should be fine. We're now going to add the cage to the fan, and I'm just going to select a new layer, and shift cursor to center, and I'm going to add a UV sphere. And before you do anything, just make sure it's 50 vertices, or segments rather, and I'm going to, let's just activate that, box select all of this, and delete the vertices. Alright, manipulate it into a decent shape. So I'm going to scale this along the Z axis, and then bringing this out because we are using proportional editing. As you can see, we're using this one here, and I will just select that middle one quickly and just bring that down with proportional editing disabled. Okay, and then we can re-enable that. Box select this one. I'm going to scale it out, but I'm just going to reduce this here just to give it some more shape. Okay, so that's basically the cage. We can maybe just bring this one up a bit to like so, and then deselect, box select this one, scale that in. Let's just switch, let's try and see, no. Okay, let's just scale that and then disable it first, scale that in there. Before I do anything, let's just add another ring there. I'm just going to duplicate this, and then I'm going to mirror it around the Z-axis, press enter, and I'll bring it up to about here because we're going to create the ring that goes in between. Then I'm just going to box select some of the vertices here at the back, and let me just, yeah, that's fine, and delete those vertices. Great, because that's going to attach to the motor. Let's deselect that, and then we'll just add another circle, scale it, scale a little bit there, and extrude and scale inwards just a little bit. We'll just subdivide that. Always happens. Put it in the wrong place and it looks the wrong size. Okay, then we will make that smooth and turn that up a bit. Going into the side, I'm going to also give it a thickness with the solidify modifier, and should be fine. Okay, let's just hide this for now, pressing H, and this one too. Okay, so what I want to do is add these little clips that are going to go on here. So let me just add a cube, scale it down, scale along the y-axis by 1.2, scale it on the x-axis by 0.8. Okay, then we're just going to delete these faces. Alright, hope you can see that, and give it a subdivision modifier. And some thickness. Okay, so need to bring it into position and bring it up to here. Then we'll scale this along the Z-axis. Alright, so that is the clip that's going to hold the cage closed, and normally we have about 3 or 4 of them, so I'm just going to make 4. Duplicate about 90 degrees, we need to make it rotate around the cursor, So rotate Z 90. Shift, duplicate that one, rotate it around the Z-axis by 90, and again. Okay, that takes care of that. Pressing Alt H, we can bring up our mesh. And now you're probably asking, how are we going to make this into a mesh? Because obviously it is still full of faces, solid faces. Okay, so we're going to select the whole thing, and then we're going to press delete. And you probably always wondered, what is this for? Well, this purpose is one of them. Only faces we're going to delete. And you can see here we're left with what looks like a mesh. But unfortunately, if you rendered that, there would be no mesh. It's not rendered at all. Okay, so let's just do the same to the bottom as well. Select all of that and only faces, and then I'll explain now how we're going to make this render as a mesh. All we're going to do is simply convert it into a curve, and the bottom as well. And then our settings over here, we're going to, because that comes up once you've created it as a curve, we're going to use the full mode, full mode, and this here I'm going to put it at 0.0001, depth 0001, and then the resolution about 10. And you can see now that it's not visible, so we need a little more depth. I think we'll put that at 0.001, which is what I wanted. And if we select top one, now we're getting to see it. So let's do the same here. It'll be 0.001 and the resolution 10. Right, so yeah, I think it could be a bit thicker. Alright, for now we will just settle with that, and let's just put that onto the fan now. I'm going to first of all just bring this all the way up to there, and we'll select box select everything in this case, and rotate it around the x-axis by 90 degrees. Alright, I'm just going to sort something out here quickly first. The mesh here is only half, or the curve is only half filled, so we need to put that to full to make a proper mesh. I'm just going to increase the thickness as well to 0.03, 003, and the same. And then what I'm going to do is just hide this one, pressing H, and I'm going to box select everything here, and deselect this once, and then select it again and say parent it to that. Pressing Alt H, we bring this one back up again, deselect it, Control P, we parent it to that. Now if I move this, that should move with it, and I'm only going to select the one part there and say selection to cursor, and everything moves to where I want it. There, and then I just need to scale, and this along again, scale, use the arrow key, left arrow key to scale down, and then that. There. Alright, so that's about it. And then the fan blades, I'm just going to scale those to 0.7. I think that should be about right, yes. Okay. Just a quick look now at all the layers, which I'm going to just bring up and go into camera mode. Select the camera with your right mouse button and bring in the focal length, and then just press G and move your camera around like so, and then we can just get an idea of how mesh is okay. We obviously need some more lighting in that, but so far so good. And we also need to just put the render view, the render for the subsurface higher there. Let's just check again. Yeah, it can be higher still on the render time. That's better. The curvature there is smooth. Alright, now we're heading into the animation side of things. It's very important to make sure that you parent the parts correctly to each other. What I want to do is use the base as the handle, as it were, to move everything around. So everything is going to be sort of parented to that. Okay, so we'll just first of all parent the small parts of this to the pedestal. So what we'll do is just go like this, box select, and that should select everything, yes, and then deselect that one and then select it again. Okay, so that's fine, and then we'll parent it to this one. Okay, so if I move this now, that moves along with it. If I move this, it's separate, of course. So if we didn't parent that properly, let's just do that again. So if I grab this now, everything moves there. Grab this, the buttons are obviously with it. It's just easier to do this way. Okay, what I want to also parent next is this part to the housing and this to the housing. Okay. The shaft is going to be rotating, obviously, but what we wanted to do is to also be parented to the housing, which is going to be oscillating and rotating. Or this central part here, remember, is already having the fan blades parented to it. Let's just double check that again. Rotate around y-axis. It's important also now when you're testing just to make sure that your rotation is going to be either to the cursor or to the object. So in this case, let's just do the active element. It just makes things a little bit easier. Okay. Then we're going to rotate around the y-axis just to make sure that's fine. Okay, and we'll parent this cage as well to the housing. Right, so when this housing now rotates, let's just use this here, that's going to be moving, but as you can see, the fan blades have to be also rotated. Okay, so what I want to do is parent that also to the housing. And when we rotate now, everything moves. Press Ctrl Z to bring it to the 0 position. Now, this here I'm just going to, let me just extend that, extrude that a little bit more, just so that that goes right into the part there. Okay, this here looks a bit odd, so I'm going to fix that. Let me just hide this housing, pressing H. Deselect that, box select this end part here, and press E to just flatten that out. Okay, so that's fine. So that just looks better in case somebody has a look inside there. I want to add some extra detail to the center of the fan here. I'm just going to press 7 so we've got that layer, and deselect. Let's just add a mesh circle. Bring it into view. Bring it into view there, rotate it around the x-axis. I'm just going to bring the cursor to selected, and then this selection to the cursor. I'll just bring that forward, scale it down to about there, and extrude and scale it in by 0.9. And then just deselect everything, pressing A, box select these vertices here and delete them. And these two vertices we'll select and we'll merge them at the center. And then I'll just pull this out a bit, like so. We'll select all of that, going into side view again. We'll extrude and pull it out there, and then I'm just going to pop it onto that surface. Add a modifier, subdivision, around 2. Set it smooth, and this is just going to be parented to that. So when I rotate this now, it's just going to accentuate the motion there, otherwise the central part looks a little bit stationary sometimes. The second thing I want to do is just to go into the cage, which is on layer 8, and again add another mesh circle. Rotate around x90. Let's just put the cursor to that selected, and then that again, selection to cursor. Scale it down. We just need to go into side view here, then we'll find it. Just select that and bring it forward. And I'll just do another few loop cuts. Maybe that's enough there. Just adding the subdivision surface modifier and also the solidify modifier. We'll add some thickness there, not so much. Let's just bring this to the top of the stack rather, and bring this down to about there. And then we're going to just select some of these vertices here. And we'll just pull them out a bit like so. And we'll set this smooth. Now, just to fill the central part here again, deselect and select those vertices. Press escape and then add another subdivision surface modifier and extrude and scale that in all the way to about there. Just need to pop it onto the actual cage. Just parent it to this cage here, pressing Ctrl P, object keep transform. So if we grab this, that'll move with it as well. And we're going to now work on the animation. So let's just select the Axe Engrave key, which brings up all the layers. If I go to the housing now, I can bring up the manipulator, and this Y axis I don't want. I don't want this housing rolling along the Y axis, around the Y axis. So I'm going to manipulate only the Z and X axis, locking that Y rotation there, and then you'll notice that disappears. We're going on to the top view, and I'm going to be manipulating the Z axis rotation, having a look over here to see what is the limit before it bumps into the pedestal there. Okay, so what I found is the settings here, which will work best. It'll be a 10 axis, and here it can be 20 along the Y Z axis, or minus 20 in the opposite direction, rotation, anti-clockwise. And with the X rotation as well, minus 10 will be fine on the upward oscillation there, or tilt if you want to call it that. So let's go ahead with the animation. We'll just get the layout there, bring up the graph editor a little bit larger there, and what we're going to do is just press N, and then we can get the transform properties. Let's just put them to 0 for now. Okay, going into front view, basically what we're going to need to do is, let me just draw this here, we just need to set the coordinates for the oscillation. So over in this corner here, obviously the fan starts up from the center and then moves up to there, goes down to here, and to there, and to there, and the cycle continues. So from the starting position, which is there, set already, we can then just set that. Just going to side view, we are selecting this housing, which I'm going to call housing, and then the fan hub or center, I think it's called, we'll just call it fan center there, so that when we have a look over here we can find it more easily, hopefully. Nope. So here it is, housing and the fan center, so we can select those more easily. So let's go back to selecting the housing, and the rotation is going to be all at 0. So holding the mouse over this section here anywhere, we press I, and that will enter the keyframe for rotation. Another way to do it is to go over here for instance, and then you press I and select whichever you want. In this case it's only rotation that we are using for all the objects, no location keyframe. So the rotation is 0 here, and then we're going to bring it as we said to the top left, which will be minus 10, and then on the Z axis minus 20 top left, and that position, if you don't put it in, then you have to reset it obviously. So move the mouse to the position that you want this, and I'm going to put it at 20 for now, and so that will be minus 10 and minus 20 as I said, and we press I again. Right, and the keyframe is inserted there. Also you'll see the graph editor, if we press home that will enlarge it, and the curve is a Bezier, which is great because it takes time for the object to get started and slows a bit down as it gets to the top left. So that's what the Bezier curve means, as opposed to constant. So the next position, I'm just going to put it equally 30, so it'll come down, and that'll be down at 20 bottom left, and the z-axis won't change because it's in the bottom left corner. So that'll be the next keyframe. We press I, and then we're going to move across from the left to the center, so that's another position, and then to the bottom right. So we're going to make that 2 points because that'll be the center there, and it'll take twice as long to get to the 50th frame, and the z-axis there will be 20, and we'll add the keyframe, which is I, and then to get to the top right we will just add -10 again, and the z-axis remains the same, and we'll enter that keyframe. So let's just have a look and see how that works. I press Alt-A to run it, and of course it's very fast for now. That's great. So it kind of does the action that we want, but now we want it to cycle back again to the top left. Now instead of entering that all over again, all we have to do is go into our dope sheet editor over here, press home. That'll spread everything out so you can see it nicely, and we just want to bring it back to the top left. So let's click where that was there, so position 20. So that is where it ended off over here, so we're going to copy from here onwards. Let's hope that's correct. So we'll box select these, and then we'll shift D and grab, and then we'll pop them back over here so that they're separated. But that should actually be twice as long, because again it's going to take it's going to go across the center and then position itself back again, and then you just manipulate it so that it's on the next one, so it takes 2 again. Right, so let's just check that. There we go. And now what we can do is just select all of that. So let's just box select from this position here, and shift D, grab along X, and looking down at the bottom there in your timeline, you're going to have a space of 2 bars there again, because it's going to go across to the left, from there across to the left. Okay, so let's just run that quickly, Alt A, and see if it cycles nicely. Great, so that's working fine. Okay, so obviously it's going a little bit too fast, so what we can do is just go here and add another 500, make it 500 frames, and we will then box select all of this and scale along the x-axis, and that will just pull that out nicely. Doesn't matter if it goes over because we're just cycling through. I'm just going to try and set it so that it more or less fits into the 500, and then of course that will run a little bit slower. Okay, let's just scale it all the way out. We won't have more than 500 frames, but I just wanted to look a little bit more realistic as far as that goes. You know, that's even a little bit too fast, but you've got the idea as to how you can set that. Okay, now what I want to do is just add the rotation. So let's just go down here and select fan center, and the fan is going to rotate around the y-axis. We add the 0, or let's just, yeah, we add the 0 frame, and that is going to be 0. We enter the keyframe there for rotation, pressing I, and then the last one, 500th frame, we're going to have this being rotated by 10,000 degrees divided by 360. That will give you how many rotations in that 500 frame section there. Okay, so pressing I while we hold that over there, we now have that keyframe entered there for the rotation of the frame, and you can see the fan center has its rotation entered into the dope sheet. Alright, and over here, let's just press home, and you'll see that it is a Bezier curve again. Now that's great because it takes time for the fan blade to start up. But if you don't want the fan blade to slow down at the end, then just select this one entry and rotate, pressing R. And right, so let's have a look.